Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how I would do a Summer Souls replenishment. So the first things that I do is I pull up the brand in Techometrics. In order to find the brand, we're going to log in underneath eSource, which we can see right here. We're going to go to FBA Insight and FBA Opportunities. And sometimes it takes a few minutes to load because it's pulling up a lot of data. And right now we can see a bunch of the other brands that it's pulling up for replenishment and or opportunities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type it into the search bar so I can find it a little quicker. Okay, we want to focus on just plain Summer Souls since on-site is no longer a thing. So I'm going to click on Summer Souls. And right off the bat, it's pulling up a lot of information. Right now, it's currently showing the sales rate as the past 30 days, using rates when items are in and out of stock, and it's estimating an order quantity for 60 days of coverage. We're going to adjust this, but first, I want to take a look at these recent purchase orders up here in the corner and see if any of those have left our facility or are in transit to FBA. Once an order has left our warehouse and is in transit to FBA, we have to delete them out of Techometrics. Otherwise, it's going to continue to count that inventory. So what I do is I will literally just copy the Techometrics number. And what we do is we track all of our order replens. So I've already got pulled up our replenishment order spreadsheet that we use. And I am just going to do a page search to find that. Perfect. So you can see here on this line item that I have some of the information filled out. So I'm going to take that FBA order number, which is the shipment ID, and I am going to look on our smart sheet that the warehouse uses to communicate with us where our orders are in the warehouse. So I pulled up, I've already had pulled up our FBA Logistics Statistics Board. This is where all of our FBA orders are uploaded and moved across the board by the warehouse or operations to know where a product is in transit. Is it still waiting to be received? Is it received waiting to get put onto the shelves? Has there been a transfer order submitted for it? And so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a page search for that FBA order number. Okay, so it's found the order. I'm going to click on it and it says it's been received at Amazon, and the last update they have here is on the 3rd. So I'm going to go back to our replenishment orders and I'm going to put here that it was received at Amazon on the 3rd. And I'm just going to put a strike through on that so I know that it's all done. Now I'm going to go back into Techometrics and I am going to select that order and I am going to delete that. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to do this for every single one of those open orders. And I usually like to refresh to kind of make sure that everything's up to date and that there's no prior orders that perhaps we're not pulling, because it will usually only reflect at max up in this top corner for recent purchase orders. So let's take a look for the second one. Okay, this one has no information yet, so I'm actually going to look up the information in NetSuite. So I have that open in a separate tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to populate that PO number into the global search. Perfect. We're going to click on it. Okay, right off the bat, I can see it's been fully billed, so that means the item's been received in full and accounting's already processed it, which is great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at related records to get a time frame. So I can see that it was received on the 3rd. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put that it was received on 2/3 here in our replenishment orders tab. Now I am going to take that purchase order number and I am going to look on the logistics board. Perfect. Looks like it's already been processed. It's in the warehouse. So what I like to do is I would usually review these shipping orders, and whichever one has the most inventory is the one that I will usually note on the order. That way I know majority of it is in transit to Amazon before it's removed. So I'm going to go ahead and update that. I want to get its transfer order number. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into NetSuite and get the rest of that information. Perfect. Okay. There's the transfer order number and the date that it was done. So I'm just going to record that here in our replenishment order piece. Okay. And it's still, I'm going to change my note here to 210 in warehouse. So because it's still in our warehouse, I don't want to remove it out of Techometrics because it's not in transit to FBA yet. So we're going to leave that one there. So go ahead and I will check these others to see if they've been received. We want to make sure that we are keeping note and have eyes on all orders that we have. That way we can make sure that the strategists are up to date. We know if there's any further problems. Basically, just all in all, we want to make sure that we're as up to date as possible. So it looks like this order was likely shipped around the same time. So I'm just going to go ahead and start updating that. Oops. Okay. Okay, this one looks like it's in transit to Amazon on 2/9. So they likely got shipped from the manufacturer out of order. So I'm just doing all of those same steps. I'm going to copy that information and correct what I posted. Okay. Because that is in transit to Amazon, I am going to remove this item from Take. Okay, we're going to refresh. Perfect. I am going to check on this one. I'm pretty sure it hasn't even shipped yet because this was just done on the 3rd, but I just want to make sure that my information is as accurate as possible. And this really comes out in handy during the holiday time when things get really backed up and you need to know that, like, okay, well, it was delivered on like the 20th. Why did it take so long for the warehouse to physically receive it into the system kind of deal? And it's just good to have that information to bring up to, like, let's say Courtney about the operations team, or if Amazon's taking a super long time to receive that inventory. So it's just good data to have. Okay, this is still pending receipt. So I'm just going to put here, pending receipt. You don't have to put those notes in there. I like putting them in there so I have an idea at a simple glance what's going on. Okay, so now that we have our past replenishment orders up to date and we've removed stuff that shipped to Amazon, we can go ahead and go and start looking at replenishment. So a couple things about Summer Soul. Summer Soul usually does not have a lot of movement during the winter months. It's more of a summer brand, hence Summer Souls. So usually the orders will be on the smaller side, but in the summertime, we really need to make sure that we're watching it because it can take off out of nowhere. So when you're replenishing out of Techometrics, we want to make sure that we are looking at product that's in stock, and you can adjust these sales rates as needed. So for Summer Souls, because they're usually slower moving at this time of year, I'm just going to focus on 30 days of inventory over the past 30 days of sales. So you can already see that that total went down quite a bit. However, I am still going to export this, and then I'm going to compare it to our FeedVisor sales. One of the things that Techometrics has a tendency to do is if a product is out of stock, or there was just like some internal issues, it will inflate inventory. We're not quite sure where it comes up with its calculations or why it handles it that way. But to try to keep things as accurate as possible and our inventory at the most optimal level, we will go ahead and compare it to FeedVisor sales, since they have a really good capturing of sales data. And so it's just like a really good thing to have to make sure that we're not over ordering. So I've pulled up the FeedVisor to export out our sales information. We're going to go to this drop down, and we want to make sure that we are in the appropriate storefront. So I've selected eSource, and then I want to go to our custom dashboards. So I'm going to click on that, and I want to do performance by brand and by SKU. And I use this whenever I need like a good list of FBA sales. So like I'll use this for writing like other orders or pre-season orders, just to kind of get like an understanding of how it moved on FBA. We don't really have a great tool to capture everything all at once, so that's why we use FeedVisor, Techometrics, and NetSuite. So now that I've by SKU, I can change the date ranges for when I want to look at. And since we're looking at the past 30 days, I'm going to go ahead and keep it as the 30. But because the report is so large, we're going to have to export it out. So we're going to click on these little dots. We want to download it as an XLSX. And then I uncheck those and just export. And it usually does take a few minutes. So while I am waiting for that to export, I am going to go back into Teak, and I am going to go ahead and select all of these items. We're going to put into add to replenishment plan. You want to select new PO. I'm going to type in Summer Souls Replen 2.10 for today's date. Submit. To find those purchase orders, we're going to go to FBA Insight and then FBA Purchase Orders, and it's right here. So you can see it's been assigned to Techometrics ID. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and export this out so I have it in a spreadsheet, so that way I can compare it to our sales and upload it into NetSuite. So I'm going to click on Excel, and I'm going to request to pull the ASIN, because if I need to make a lot of changes to this order, I will delete it and import in a new order. So I like having the ASINs available in case I need to do that. So I'm going to download. Perfect. Here it is. Just a moment. There we go. This is what it looks like when it exports out. We usually do not need all of this information. So I'm going to go ahead and start deleting the fields that we don't need. I don't need the name, and I don't need all of this information. I want the quantity. Don't need this, and then I'm going to delete the overall total. So now we have SKU, ASIN, quantity. Now I'm going to go back and see if FeedVisor has exported. It looks like it has, so let's open that up. Wonderful. So from here, I'm going to AbleBits in the information I need on this Techometrics order sheet. So I'm going to highlight my page. We're going to go to AbleBits data, merge two tables. This is showing me the first table I have selected, and then I want to compare it against my FeedVisor page. So I'm going to click on next. We want to match it up by SKU. And then because I'm not updating any of the columns that I physically have here, we're going to select a column to add to our table. And so I'm going to add in ordered items. And then I'm just going to select finish. Perfect. Okay, so I like to keep the matching status here. That way I know if something doesn't match. Okay, perfect. So these are how many items were ordered or sold within the past 30 days. And this is what Techometrics is asking us to order. In comparison, everything looks good. I don't see anything out of whack. So I'm going to go ahead and place this order as it's shown and as suggested. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this field here. I'm not going to need the ASIN anymore. So now my next step is to see if we have any of this inventory on hand to make a transfer order. So again, we're going to do some able bitsing. So I'm going to select my sheet. I'm going to select to merge two tables. And then prior to this recording, I exported out a retail bloom on hand report. So that's what I'm going to be comparing it to. And I usually export that out every day. So SKU by SKU. And now I want to know, I'm going to import our internal ID. And then I'm also going to see what we have on hand. So to know what Retail Bloom has on hand, we're going to go to maximum of 1837 primary on hand. And that's what we want to add to our main table. Next, finish. Okay. As we can see here, there is some inventory that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and sort largest to smallest. And we're going to transfer these top 3 SKUs. Just so we have, and I usually put an additional column in there so I have a good, easy way to filter it out. So we're going to file, open, and you'll have all this stuff available once you start ordering too. So I know I've got a lot going on with these different spreadsheets and reports, but we'll make sure that you understand it completely before we just throw you at it. So I'm going to go ahead and take our SKU here, and I'm going to start putting it into this template. So I have my SKU, and then I'm going to copy the inventory. So this is how much that was on hand. Whoops. And then this is what we want to transfer. Okay. And for the rest of the information, I will usually just able bits it against the Retail Bloom on hand report to pull that all over instead of doing a bunch of copying and pasting. So I'm going to go ahead and match it up by SKU. Now we want to update the columns that we have here. So we want to do UPC, product description, purchase price, and MSRP. Okay, now I'm going to physically enter in the rest of this information. So the storefront is eSource. For the PO number, since we don't have a physical purchase order number yet, I will usually put in the Techometrics order number and then the supplier name. And then I want to make sure that that's copied all the way down for all of the line items. And now I'm going to save the sheet, rename this here to Summer Souls Transfer TM 2878, and then today's date. And I usually just save it underneath my downloads because I will import it into the actual brand folder that we have on the shared drive. So I don't really need to save it anywhere on my physical desktop. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our transfer order page here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab. Okay, this is our FBA transfer request. Once we submit it here, it gets sent to Ashley Strader, and she will physically import a transfer order into NetSuite and start working on getting the inventory put on an order for Courtney's team to pick and send to Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling out this form here. So Summer Souls. And then I will usually put the Techometrics number right up here in the first top part. That way I can search by that number and it'll pull up on the logistics board. Storefront is eSource. We're shipping it to the United States. I want to put in my prepper email. Again, I'm going to put that Techometrics order number in there. And then let's see how much we had on that transfer order. 26 items. So I'm going to put 26, and then I'm going to put the location that it's coming from. Okay, so now we're going to attach the file here. And I'm going to put in today's date and submit. And that's how we put in a transfer order. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we can work on placing the actual replenishment order. So we don't need these top SKUs since they all got transferred. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those. I'm going to delete this column. And now I'm going to build out the actual import order that I'm going to be putting into NetSuite. So we're going to need an ETA, which is estimated time of arrival. And they usually take anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. So I usually look at my calendar, and I'm going to say that probably the 3rd is going to be a safe bet for when we can expect that product to arrive. So I'm going to put in 3/3/2021. And then anything that we import into NetSuite needs an external ID. So we have to create a unique ID that's special for this order when we're importing it into the system. So in order to do that, I would usually take today's date. So I'll do 2021/02/10, and then I'll do summer or summer sole, and then I'll put FBA. And then we need to make sure that that's the same for every single line item. So we need to make sure that we're copying and pasting this into each line, because if you drag it down, because there's numerals in it, it's going to increase by 1. And when we import it, if it's different, it's going to consider it a different purchase order for every single line item. So that's where we want to make sure we're copying and we're pasting, and we're making sure that, especially for the external ID, it's all the same. So now that I have this all built, I'm going to save it. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that Techometrics number in there, and I'm just going to put in Summer Sole Replen 210, and then I'm going to save it as a CSV, comma delimited. Save. Okay, now we're going to go into NetSuite. So we're going to go back into NetSuite. You can see here from the prior purchase order, I'm going to go to the home page, and I am going to, I have it saved here on my home page, but I know that there's a way to import, and unfortunately I can't think of it off the top of my head. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on my saved, my shortcut, and then I'm going to go ahead and I have a report saved here for how to properly upload, which is something that you will eventually get into the habit of as well. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to find that document that I just saved right here, Summer Sole Replen. Next, we're adding it since it's going to be a new record. And here we just got to match up the proper fields. So this is for the brand or the vendor, so we need to put in the appropriate one. So to do so, you just click on it, and then we're going to click on these little down arrows, and we want to search. And I'm going to put in Summer Sole. Perfect. So we're going to click on that, and then it will override what was there before. You can see here now that it shows Summer Sole. The external IDs are matching. This is the location we want it into. It's underneath the Oliva Store subsidiary. We want the correct date. So I'm going to click on that pencil, and it automatically will pull up today's date. So I'm going to click done. We have the ETA. Internal ID is how we find the SKUs in the system, which is why I had that imported in before. And then quantity. So it looks like everything's matching up. So I'm going to click next. And now I'm going to click on run. Okay. And now if we click on this little hyperlink here, it's going to take us to the status of what we just imported. So I'm going to refresh. And right here, we can see that it's completed. 1 out of 1, records imported successfully. So now I have to find that. So I'm going to do vend for vendor. And then I'm just going to type in Summer Sole. Perfect. So there it is. We're going to click on that. And then to find a purchase order underneath the vendor, you go to the vendor's page, which is what we just did. We're going to go down to financial, then to transactions, and it's going to give you a list of purchase orders. So here is our purchase order for today's date. So I'm just going to click on that date, and here's our purchase order. So what I do from here is I am going to copy, and I am going to print this into a PDF and email it to our vendor. Perfect. So I will go ahead and let me bring my email over here. I'm going to do a new message. I'm going to find Gwendolyn is who we send the Somersault orders to. PO. I have saved templates for a lot of my emails. Just basically asking us to please process the purchase order. Now I'm going to attach. And send. And that's it. From here, I will go through and I will update our records here. So I'll do and then the PO number, and then I will go back into Teak. We want to make sure we finalize the order. And then we had 52 units. I'm going to type in 52 and then and that's it. That's how I do replens for Somersaults.